Well, happy winter solstice or summer solstice in Australia and New Zealand and Antarctica, if the penguins are listening. Uh, yeah, good to see you all. If you want to take the time to see everybody, that would be great. Wow. Mm. So we're going to shift into noticing our physical posture. And the emphasis will be on pausing, not being in a hurry, just receiving the sensations as they are, moment by moment. One of the things I used to love about being around the Dalai Lama some years ago was he would just kind of shift back and forth, whether he was sitting or standing, shift back and forth a bit until he just kind of intuitively found this deeper balance. It can be very subtle. Just feeling that, so feeling into your alignment between earth and sky. And receiving, the sensations of our sit bones, lower back, connecting with the earth element. And sometimes it's helpful to check into the quality of our observation, the observing attention or the awareness. And you check and see it's not meant to be a forceful endeavor, but a gentle, light, noticing if there can be sometimes a little kindness or a shift to a light tenderness or care as a motivation itself to be with things as they are. And then, of course, we tend to recommend anchoring, just letting the attention settle in to some calm. Shifting out of a lot of the chattering of the thought process into, for example, being aware of hearing. Sometimes it's just like listening to your favorite music, even if it includes unpleasant or neutral. But it's a kind of moment by moment, never happened before, never will happen again soundtrack. Of course, including silence. Receiving textures and vibrations just as they're happening if we can, or close. And noticing sometimes that birth, life, and death of sound, or disappearing, just disappearing. It's going so fast. And it can be really helpful to start noticing any thoughts about the sounds, just like a sound, just like a thought will come and go by itself. You just notice thinking, no problem. If we can come back to the sounds, to hearing. So there's already that including, not fighting what's appearing. But if possible, just seeing it just like a cloud going through the sky, just a thought. No need to keep thinking about the thought, if possible. And then the sensations in our hands. Again, it's finding the anchor that works best for us to still the surface of the mind, like the surface of the puddle. It's again very light, letting the attention settle in. We'll have an idea like, oh, that's a thumb, wrist, finger. That's just thoughts based on the past, often visual images. And you just let those come and go. Making more space for receiving the sensations just as they are. Always new. Aliveness. Appearing. Disappearing. Moment by moment. So we start to maybe get a glimpse of it's not my hands, my finger, my thumb, my sounds, my thought. Shifting to the movement of the breath. The abdomen. And you can notice there can be a pausing, more of a delicacy of pausing. Air element, just like wind or swells in the ocean. Not mine, not me, not I. And really getting that sense you don't have to do anything with this movement. Just letting it be just as it is. And sometimes you can really receive, or the attention is being with the movement just as it's happening or close. The awareness, the physical movement, appearing, disappearing. So as we allow these sensations to come and go, not through the thought process, and get a sense of how to work with happiness, sadness, enjoyment, grief, indifference, or boredom. Peace, attachment, fear. It's pleasant, unpleasant, feeling tone coming and going. We've never experienced this particular emotion. Ever. Sometimes we can have this genuine interest. If it's vague, let it be vague, clear, very light, intense, neutral, just like letting the breath come and go by itself. And if we get lost in thinking about it, it's okay, just notice that. But then it's helpful usually to anchor. It's just like climbing a mountain and getting a perspective. Finding that rest and anchoring. For loving kindness, care. And then finding this deep rest and exploration and freedom, peace. Oh my God.
Your bell didn't ring, babe, but I heard you addressing God. You're muted, Michele.
Yeah. I have to turn it off to do certain things, so I turn it back on eventually. Um, hmm. I think the winter solstice is such an important time, but because we have electricity and ways of heating things or driving around, or that we don't always stop enough to really take it in. And but it's of course reversed in the southern hemisphere, which is this is the time of so much light from the sun. So it's important again. All the beings on the planet experience uh, these changes in dark and light. But of course, symbolically, it's had a huge influence on humans and their meaning and beliefs. So, for example, the seven factors of enlightenment, the seven factors of enlightenment, or the light of awareness, right? There's festivals of lights that are going on all month. There's so much meaning that it takes time to process what it means for us, I think, individually. But at the least, if you are in the northern hemisphere, one can feel very grateful. Right? Like it's so big a deal to have today, the sun, if it came up in your area, the weather, but just that we can feel so happy to see the sun and so grateful. Our star, right? It's the Earth star. Um, it's so moving, right? That I hope none of you missed it. Mm. I lived off the grid for 8 years in northern Maine, way off the grid, with 3 kids, my sister's kids, um, with some friends. And it would feel like most of the people, there were just 8 people living there, but it was like it turned into Santa's workshop uh, as a way to deal with how dark it was and cold. Like, and that wasn't, this is the beginning, right? It's the beginning of winter. And, after some years, you really get that sense of like, why is this a holiday time, right? Like, why is everybody running around and, just like all even the beauty of the generosity that's emphasized or the joy, it is so paradoxical to what is actually happening. And I really think that's the meaning of it. It's like it's so paradoxical that but yeah, my friends just turned into like just a production of whatever art and craft or you know getting ducks or like it wasn't just crafts, it was always like so busy without the like the commercialization of it. It was really interesting to notice what was going on. um, and I remember just moving from Massachusetts to northern Maine. I had a grandmother from Newfoundland, and when I was a kid she would always tell me, you don't know what snow is. This would be after a blizzard. She'd say, you have no idea what snow is. Um, and compared to Newfoundland, that was very true. But it helped me, again, to see how harsh uh, winters can be for so many. And maybe 1 or 2 years after I lived there, no, there's no phone, right? There's no um, way of communicating out from where we were. I really felt, especially with the kids there, I needed to have a car. Didn't have enough money for much of one, but I started to get this newspaper, a state of Maine newspaper, and found a person that I could write a letter to. Like he actually put his address instead of a phone number. And eventually we became pen pals, but it took a few months to even arrange buying a car from him and getting there, which was in central Maine. Um, so we have the same birthday. And so my birthday is December 11th, and he sent me this poem on my birthday by Saigyo, the great poet, Saigyo, the poet monk. Winter has withered everything in this mountain place. Dignity is in its desolation now, and beauty in the cold clarity of its moon. And I think if you've really experienced winter, like really experienced it, you'll get that sense how there is great dignity in the desolation of it. Just the frozen ice and the steep snow and the no leaves and the harshness of it. But and then if the moon is out, right, or like the stars now, it's it's also so beautiful. And it's that kind of, to me, the epitome, really, the fulfillment of paradox, how winter can be so difficult but so beautiful. And also in our personal lives, right, in the world or in our heart, how these harsh times or cruel times um, are something to find the depth in ourself of peace and beauty, right? Love, generosity. That's the meaning of these times. That's what hopefully we're all doing as best we can, right? I spoke the other talk that I gave about this temple in Narita, Japan. I managed to get to on this trip to see Steve in Thailand. And there was a really massive old ginkgo tree at the top of the stairs on the way into the temple with the most beautiful gold leaves. It was so full, but the leaves were on the ground and all as well. And I also feel like if you have the privilege of being in autumn and seeing all that light, right? All the light from the spring and the summer come back to us, right? The beauty of the autumn, the beauty of it, but it's all dying, right? Like it's all of those leaves are dying. Winter's coming, and yet it's so beautiful. So I always feel like the winter solstice is a time to really get down on our knees, right? And bow, like bow to the teaching of it, bow to the light of it, the reverence of it, the appreciation of any human who can find the meaning of that and the generosity within that. We're so fortunate if we can. So recently, this week, I was looking up ginkgo trees a little more. Uh, so they have very deep roots and they're tolerant, very tolerant of adverse conditions, including wind, pollution, and fire. So in Hiroshima in 1945, there was an atomic attack, as hopefully we all know, right? So destructive, so devastating, so horrible. And 1.5 miles from the epicenter, there were these ginkgo trees that the bark was scorched off and their branches were stripped away, and a nearby temple was destroyed. But the ginkgos survived and leafed out the next spring. And it's a very important place in Hiroshima, like the level of appreciation for their, not only their survival, but their resilience. Yeah, the resilience. And that this is what the talk is about, really. It's about resilience, right? In hardship, resilience. That the winter solstice and all that we celebrate is meant to be understood really on deeper and deeper levels. I also found out that there was a passage I read from Tolkien, Fellowship of the Ring, but most of us know it as Lord of the Rings. I'll read it again. But now I know that actually Tolkien was a soldier in World War II. Sorry, he was a soldier in World War I, and he had lost his two really dear best friends in that war. They died. He only had one friend left. My father's father was in that war. My dad was in World War II. My father's father was completely gonzo from that war, whatever did happen to him. He was so shut down. Um, it was amazing how shut down he had to be to survive. So I just really appreciated that I learned this about Tolkien and how he created this fairy tale world, but actually the writing was a way to try to come to terms with it all, right? It's just so different a perspective that I had after learning this. So I'll read it again, but just to know that Frodo is a hobbit and he is carrying a ring of immense power. And the evil forces that don't want him to destroy that ring are chasing him, and he's almost been so injured he died, and the injury he has in the book, he's so injured it's never going to heal in his lifetime. That's how already intense the evil is and how it's going after him. It's all symbolic. So he says to Gandalf, they're lost, him and Gandalf and the others trying to go to protect and save the earth. He says to Gandalf, I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had ever happened. And Gandalf, who's a wizard, he says to Frodo, so do all who live to see such times. And I think we really, again, have to take it to heart, I wish the ring would never come to me, would have never come to me. I wish none of this had happened. Do we ever feel like that about anything, inner or outer? And then he says, so do all who live to see such times. Yeah, these times we're in. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what we do with the time that is given to us. No matter how old we are, what do we do with the time given to us? There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you are also meant to find it. And that may be an encouraging thought. So just, it's such a different perspective on accepting pain, right? Just like it's an encouraging thought that we actually are meant to be the bearers of whatever pain we're facing, right? And living through. And he didn't say, I looked it up, he didn't say that is a encouraging thought. He said that may be an encouraging thought, which I love because it gives space for us to have that feeling of doubt. So the Buddha taught 8 worldly conditions that we all face as human beings, which I also find very encouraging. We all face these conditions. And it's always that great teaching of the Buddha, having a bad back, right? Or that great quotation where he says, I spit on you, old age. That's one of my favorite. As I get older, I love that quotation, I spit on you, old age. All right, right? Yeah, the Buddha didn't have a body that wasn't human. It got old, got sick, and died. Unavoidable, inevitable, right? And so the human world has these 4 pairs: pleasure, pain, gain, loss, praise, blame, fame, disrepute. And we see so clearly the ones we like, right? The pleasure, the gain, the praise, the fame for some people, but we don't want the pain, the loss, the blame, the disrepute. But it's like these inevitable forces. And of course, I've always loved that Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj in the book I Am That says, acceptance of pain takes us much deeper than pleasure does. It's the ending of the self, right? It's the personal self will be wanting pleasure, not pain. So it's that ending of the little personal self that wants to manipulate and control that the acceptance of pain, kind of wears down and wears down and wears down. So hopefully we remember the loving kindness, for example, is without conditions. That's why it's hard. So it's that being able to appreciate ourselves, right? If you include the Brahma Viharas in it, care about the pain, appreciate the joy, wish ourselves well and others, right? But the loving kindness is specifically wishing well. That has nothing to do with behavior. That's tough. That's hard, including ourselves. I love myself if I don't make mistakes. I love myself if I'm perfect. I love you if you take out the garbage, right? Like I love you if you don't do the right. It's like all those ifs are meant to be understood, right, and seen, but they're not metta. And the same with Vipassana practice and the equanimity of Vipassana. It's called holy equanimity for a reason. So it's a peace without conditions. So it's a peace at every sense door, moment to moment, right? It's like we touch into it at times, that like deep acceptance of things as they are, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. So it's that overcoming that Vedana, that pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, that leads us into that deeper peace that is sometimes symbolized as the light of awareness, right? The light of peace. Jesse really wanted to do something for me for my birthday because it's been kind of rough, and but he could only get time over at the volcano uh, December 10th and 11th. Was it that? Yeah, those nights, um, which also coincided with um, I don't know how to say it, 100% necessary appointments that Steve had in um, with doctors. So both those nights they weren't changeable. They were. One doctor told me he has to go to this appointment at any cost. Um, and so, for example, the first night I got there, I had to be on with the doctors from 10 p.m. till 2:30 a.m. in the lobby of this kind of funky old hotel. Some people in Hawaii might know it, Volcano House. So in the daytime, that place is just packed, especially now because, right, the volcano, actually are we at the 23rd? No, the 23rd will be a year that this volcano's been going on. Like, she's called Pele. She's considered, even when Upandita came, Sayadaw Upandita came to the Big Island, he talked about her as, of course, she's a deva. She's like an angel in the Christian tradition, but she's a deva, a goddess, a living goddess, a very much living goddess in Hawaii. So this place, it used to be very difficult to get to Volcano, and even to get food up there long ago from Hilo. And there's a place that was built many years ago that they keep the fire going. They've been keeping the fire going for something like 100 years. I might not, I don't have the exact thing, but it's a place right on the edge of the Halima'u crater. And people that visit, anybody will often want to go to that place, that hotel lobby, because you can look out over the crater. So it is packed, like this place is packed, like with people during the day. So I was wondering what it was going to be like to try to do a very, 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 very like important call. Like in Thailand, those of you who might know, is 7 hours earlier. So the appointment was for this night. The appointment was 4:30 in the afternoon his time. Um, but I have to help get him ready, and so that starts at 10. The appointment was 11:30 my time. But nothing seemed to be going right for this situation. So I was concerned, but when I came down the steps, it's only 2 levels, very small. I came down the steps and you could hear a pin drop. And the night shift was on, which is a whole different bunch of people, right? So very quiet, very nice. And I said to the person at the desk, the front desk, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to be on the phone from 10 p.m. till 2:30 a.m. And she was like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And she just said, well, if you're going to be on the phone that long, I'm going to watch The Office, like on, I guess that's a TV show or something that you can stream. So she said, is it okay if I'm watching TV? And I'm like, fine, I'll be like over there. And then I won't feel like I'm bothering you. Um, but you can't watch The Office that long, right? Like you have to have spaces in between. And I had times when, the caregiver and Steve were in the taxi and not the doctor didn't show up. It was like one of those nights from hell. So I was walking, I thought everything was a complete catastrophe. It wasn't going to happen. So I was starting to go up the steps, and the lady said to me, I couldn't help but overhear your conversations. And I said, well, I can just imagine you can hear a pin drop here. And so she said, I thought it was your birthday because wish me happy birthday. And and I said, yeah. So she said, well, my birthday's tomorrow. And let me go to the kitchen. Everything was closed, but she went to the kitchen and got the people cleaning up there, and they brought me a piece of cake with a candle on it. And they sang me happy birthday in Hawaiian. And it was so, um, it was so moving. And then I got to talk with them. I used to work a night shift for a year, not an easy job in Western Massachusetts. So I was talking with them about what it was like. And uh-oh. Okay. Even the next day, one of the people that was working at night, he was working the coffee stand the next day. Um, so everybody kind of knew about me, but they also knew about my situation. Um, they knew a lot from listening to the doctor's appointments, right? So the detail is that Steve fell again, bad. He had been in the ICU for a few days. But at this point, we were at the concussion stage, but very bad, vomiting, headaches, but things were sort of getting better. So they heard all this and they felt so concerned about me. So I went, and of course, I wanted to make sure Jesse had the feeling that I was having a good time during the day. So, which we did, but I was so tired like that morning. So I went to the coffee stand, and this guy was, again, just uh, so sweet. So I don't usually order coffee. I ordered a coffee latte. And then I said, could I have just 3 or 4 sugars, please? I always say just so it doesn't sound like, you say only or just so it doesn't sound like a lot. You don't say, you're not embarrassed. You just say, could I just have 4 sugars, please? And he said, oh, I always just do. I'm at 7 or 8 every day, and so, oh, he was, people like that. So I started talking with him about the fog. The fog from the volcano has been so difficult. I don't know. I see Sandra, it's been very intense, right? And lately. So I said, are you having any trouble breathing. And he said, oh, I get migraines, I get this, I get that. It was just that very up leveling, right, of dukkha. Like he was really sweetening the dukkha. So then I thought, well, I'm on a roll. I'll say, yeah, this morning I felt like I was just Pele, the volcano can bring out like purification. It kind of brings out difficult emotions. So I said, I just felt like I wanted to have a tantrum this morning. I was so tired. And he said, every day. He's like, every day I drive up here from Hilo to like the volcano and I feel like I'm going to have a tantrum. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad I met you. Like, this is great. I hope you're going to work tonight. But it was just, my new name for the volcano house is the lobby. And I feel like I could do a TV show about the lobby instead of the office that shows. But okay, so I was in the lobby. This is I had another night, but not as long. But I'm pretty tired the next day. And Jesse and I were having a wonderful time. And it was in the afternoon. We had to leave soon. So in the lobby, they have a video. This is amazing. They have a video, and I don't know if I have it right because I haven't been able to stand there for hours, but they have films of every eruption. So it starts in 1933 in black and white, and it goes along and it goes along, and I've caught pieces of it. And so I walk through, and there's this boy, young boy in a chair looking at it, and it was 1959. And when Steve was that age, his parents had taken him over there from Oahu, from Honolulu, and unexpectedly, like it was the first time it went off like this, Steve saw it. Steve saw what this little boy and I were watching. And this thing was amazing. And so I said to him, I have a really dear friend that saw this. And he was like, really? And I said, he was your age and this is so cool. I'm getting to see this with you and we're watching it. And so um we were just in silence and awe for a long time. Very cool connection with him, very quiet, lots of people around. His mom came and went, and I had this feeling she didn't really understand what interest he had in it. And then suddenly he got really upset and he said, over in that store, because they have a store that sells things about volcano, t-shirts, right? Key rings, things like that. And he said, I'm not going to buy that bracelet. And I said, what bracelet? And he's really upset. And he's like, I am not going to buy a bracelet that has Pele on it. And I'm like, okay, okay, okay. You don't have to buy the bracelet. It's okay. And he's like, I am not going to buy that bracelet. It has Pele's name in it. And I said, why? And he said, look at that. Look at that volcano. Look at that fire. Look at that lava. He said that she is angry. She is so angry. And he was so, um, I don't know what I would even call it except for anguish, right? There was such anguish. And so I kind of sat on the edge of his chair and I said, um, I didn't try to meet it directly. Plus I was so tired, but I said, have you ever thought about like where we're standing right now is because of Pele? And I said, that this whole island that we're on is because of that fire, right? Like it's like she has made all the islands in Hawaii. And he sounded like a 2,000-year-old jaded person. He looked at me like um, so bored with what I said, like he'd heard it 10 million times or something. And he said, I know creation, destruction. Oh, that's all right, but I think she looks angry, and I burst out laughing. I said, "You're awesome. Like, that's awesome." You know, it's like I've been dealing my whole life with trying to figure out creation, destruction. I've been trying to deal my whole life with anger and all that energy. I was like, this is great. And he didn't look that happy with me yet. But then I said, I really, really appreciate how you feel about this. It's like this energy is life, like it's so alive and it is really scary and upsetting. And there's so much fire, and it's takes so much like of your life to figure out how to work with it. And I said, you're gonna do it. I'm doing it, you can do it, and he was like 8 years old. And you see hundreds of people going in and out right there. And yet he really was trying to understand the energy of it. And I guess that's what I want for all of us for the winter solstice, or like for anything. It's like to have that level of like, he had massive resistance, right, to that energy. And yet he had massive interest. Like he couldn't, he must have been there for hours, and his mom didn't like it, but she just kept like saying, okay, okay, okay. But just that sense of, oh, creation, destruction, creation, destruction. It's like somebody was trying to explain it to him through the thought process. But that isn't gonna help somebody who's so affected by the energy of it, right? Right? Like that is burning. And you get, the Buddha said the same thing about our sense doors, right? He said the same thing about aversion and attachment. It's so it's so destructive. It's burning. Yeah. I mean, it's like, wake up. That's what this is all about. Wake up, wake up. Don't go to sleep. Wake up. But we're offering, find out how to rest. Find out how to rest skillfully. Even if you're sleeping 5 years, Boy, I was so worried about Steve. He's sleeping and sleeping. He's sleeping so much more than usual, and I'm like, oh my. But it's like I've been reading about it and trying to understand better. It's like that's how his brain is trying to heal. And he's doing it. It's like, okay, sleeping. So we get this sense of where am I? All right, okay. Huh. So kind of as you can imagine, since Steve fell, it's been intense again. And I went for a walk maybe 4 days ago and was sitting up on this lookout that looks out over, you can see the Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, Hualalai, the mountains. The Mauna Loa is where across over the mountain is where the volcano is. Um, I was there a long time and feeling the shifting from very, very deep equanimity, accepting everything happening. That includes the news, right? You know, uh, uh, I'm hoping everybody's going through times of equanimity and peace. And then this inconsolability would appear. And I just loved it. It was like, oh, this is the total opposite of equanimity. It's like, it feels, my heart felt like it was inconsolable. Deep equanimity feels like there's no resistance to anything whatsoever. It's peace. It's like, um, It's why it's called holy. And inconsolable feels the opposite. But at that time of just sitting there and watching it, these two white egrets, the beautiful white big birds, like were flying toward me. But then they started shifting to following each other, and they went over my head, but one getting more behind the other. And one landed in a tree, hung out there a bit, and then it flew off. Then the other bird flew over and landed in the tree, stayed. And they kept following each other like that. And I started seeing them as equanimity and inconsolability, like inseparable good friends, just like following each other, both really important, both to be deeply valued. And can we do that? That's peace, right? That's like so much of how this is all taught is that you hold a carrot up in front of each people and say, this is equanimity. And you get rid of this and you get rid of that and you don't do this anymore and you don't do that. But that's crazy. That's not freedom. And the one thing that really taught me that was the Buddha's bad back. That is emphasized that he had a bad back when, it was like it's called a certain type of karma. I don't remember the Pali word for it, but it's a certain kind of karma that lasts throughout your lifetime. So I'm a member of the Buddha's Bad Back Club, and I get to notice that when I was younger and when it would go away, I'd be like, okay, right? Peace, right? And then it would come back. And I was younger, so it would go away, it would come back, and I'd be like, oh, and I would just be so upset when it came back. Like I failed, and I failed the practice. And my mind just wasn't strong enough and that I hadn't gotten rid of it. But gradually I started to really, I understood everything through the bad back. Like, just, it's not about getting rid of anything. Because what happens if anything comes back? And it's just aversion. It's like a complete misunderstanding of the practice. This is about getting a relationship with pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. This is about getting a relationship with whatever appears. And when you get older, if you've practiced a long time, you're going to get to the stuff that you have massive resistance to. So if it gets harder, it's because that's the crud, like that's the deep stuff that you've been taught since you were a little kid is not okay to experience. But that doesn't mean that, that something's wrong. It means that it just takes time. There was something that came up for me in the hotel lobby halfway through that first night where I was like, wow, this experience, I haven't experienced this in my whole life. And it wasn't because it never appeared before. It wasn't safe. It was resentment. I've never experienced resentment, but I was resenting that it was 2 a.m. and it was my birthday. And I started feeling, I've never had that experience. And then it's been a huge revelation, just like days of revelation. Like I even called my older sister and I said, wow, you'd think that given our childhood, that perhaps I might have had one mind moment of resistance, you know, it wasn't safe. So now I get to watch that, like just like that kid at the hotel lobby, massive resistance, right? He's just trying to be safe. And I'm just getting it. I'm just like, oh, I'm not interested in this experience at all. You know, why? I don't want to see myself as a resentful person, right? It's so identified. It's so identified that I have to just take time to warm it, right? Warm it with the metta, warm it with the compassion, that winter solstice light of awareness, right? That's what it's like. It's the resentment's peeking up like the sun this morning and going, yoo-hoo, want to feel this, right? No, I don't. Well, we're here. You want to feel me now? No, but I guess I'll try, right? But it's like this is, if you've practiced a long time, this is what it gets like. There will be places that just, it's not anybody's fault. It's a learned behavior, that just gets kind of stuck, but is workable with some patience. So it's that when you look at faith or trust in how things are and how things appear, it's like, that there's a faithfulness to karma unfolding, right? There's a faithfulness to life flowing as it is that can happen, including the massive resistance. The more you can include the massive resistance, the more safe your system will feel. And you'll get a better relationship with yourself because you respected it. And then you get a relationship with the resistance, right? And it's like, it's just so beautiful. And I mentioned my grandfather for a reason, because he had had 2 strokes. Steve has had 2 strokes. And just seeing even the difference in how they both worked with it. And Steve's still working with it. It's just so beautiful to see the difference with a lot of practice that we can do. Mm. So that night, the first night did work out eventually to see the doctor, which all the night shift people were very happy about, as well as me. And then, I think there's time. Yeah, let's see. Okay. So I hope that's coming across, this like with conditions, without conditions. With conditions, like with the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy or appreciation, equanimity, and the Vipassana 7 factors of awakening, or however this you think of this working. As you go deeper into this practice, you start including when you have conditions. So you love yourself if you have conditions and can't feel metta. Or you care about, you have compassion for yourself if you can't feel compassion. this is the practice. Like or you appreciate that you can't appreciate. Like you can hear a talk like this, or you can do something where you really feel like you should be grateful, and you go outside or something and you don't feel grateful at all. Right? So what do you do with that? Right? And that's what I'm trying to offer. It's like what you do with it. Oh, not being grateful. Okay, fine. It's just not feeling grateful. And if you're identified with it, it doesn't feel like it's okay. If you're not identified with it, it's just like a sound, a sight, a thought, a smell, a taste, right? It's okay. It's not personal. It's not mine. And how wonderful. What a relief that you don't have to control and manipulate. So the anchors are meant to help us learn with easier things, not to control and manipulate. And of course, we can all see that we we spend a lot of time trying to manipulate the breath, right? Or we spend a lot of time trying to manipulate sound, or we're doing the easy stuff so that when it gets to ingratitude or impatience, right, that we realize, oh, we've learned how to let the breath be vague, or the breath be tight, or the breath be hard, or the breast be soft, right? We've learned how to do that so that when the mind gets hard or tight, it's the same relationship. It's okay. You just stop trying to manipulate. You let it be. You let the ingratitude be. Wow, what a relief. What does that do? This is important. I'm really going to encourage, try to be interested in it, because if you have that massive resistance to the ingratitude, it just keeps getting locked down and more identified. If you say, oh, fine, ingratitude, guess what it gets to do? It gets to come and go by itself. It gets to be alive. You're not locking it down like a rock. So when Tangpulu Sayadaw told me, keep your mind like water, not like a rock, like water. This is what it's about. It's about recovering when we have that, no, not this, or, that's not me, or whatever, that we can have some space and let it lock down, let it be tight. And then it can, like, when you hold something really tight, somehow the system will let it go. It's energetic. So I've talked about water. I saw some book in my travels in the airport, but there was a book about rivers having rights like humans and being alive. But I don't remember the author, but the author was really surprised that we call the earth earth. Why don't we call it water? There's so much water, much more water than earth. Why are we calling it earth? I think it's a good question, but why was Tongpulu so much about water, right? So I've talked so much about puddles. I hope I don't bore you to tears, but I must say that we have had rare 2 rainstorms this week. And one of them, I would say, the puddles, I want to just give you that sense. I couldn't find anything to relate to at all, like hardly. It was not that interesting, not that exciting. Like, um, that's how life is, right? I'll talk about it of being very interesting, but it was interesting to me how much I had to wait and stand still and just be very quiet for a long time before I really noticed anything about the second puddle. Just recently. A couple of days ago, the first puddle was moving like so slowly as a whole, right? It's just moving. And I could hear my heartbeat. And then I could feel my heartbeat affecting the puddle, like the vibration. It was so quiet. And my breath, I could feel my vibration of the breath affecting the puddle, and was watching the clouds and the birds flying through the puddle. And it was reminding me of that calligraphy museum where the paper was like soft and had mica dust in it. And the puddle was quivering and sparkling. I don't think I'll go on and on too much, but I was so into it. I was bent over and looking, and Jesse had to go somewhere. And I turned around, and he was taking a video of me looking at the puddle, and I was so concentrated. He actually drove up and had put the window down and was taking a video of me looking at the puddle, and I didn't even hear it. It was so funny. And then, okay, then the birds came and they were taking bird baths and their wings were splashing, and it was pure joy, beautiful. And then the next puddle, I didn't notice any of that. Yeah. Isn't that amazing how life is? Just amazing. Oh, so I think I'm gonna try to find, well, yeah, well, my pen pal in Maine, in probably 1974, who first sent me my first Saigyo poem, I thought I would read a few to end the sitting. And also, I'm just wishing everybody just the rest and the courage, the strength to keep working with our times. It's not, as Gandalf said, we don't choose these times, but we do our best to make use of the time we have. And I'm wishing everyone that. Saigyo had a very lonely life in the mountains for a long time, but then he started finding other friends. Deep in the mountains, sitting upright on moss used as a mat for himself, with not a care in the world, is a gibbering, chattering ape. Deep in the mountains, no call of any bird at all close or familiar, just the spine-tingling hoot of that mountain owl. Limitations gone, since my mind fixed on the moon, clarity and serenity make something for which there's no end in sight. I'll read that one again. So those times of awakening and peace are like this. Limitations gone, since my mind fixed on the moon, clarity and serenity make something for which there's no end in sight. Wishing you much peace, joy, love. And I did have a great time at the volcano, by the way. Jesse and I hiked, and It was so beautiful. I'll talk about it in another talk, but there's a lot of space there to hold massive resistance. It's so special and peaceful, very serene, very serene. So Jesse got that too, which is great. Mm. Mm. Time to get a Pele's bracelet. Mm. Okay, see you next Sunday. Good luck with everything.
Thank you, Michelle.